Hey guys, welcome to another video. My name's Jason. If you're new to the channel, hi. If you're coming back, then glad to have you back. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the first 6 months of the year and everything I read, everything I didn't read, and what I liked and what I didn't like. So if you do like my videos, I'd love if you subscribe to the channel. I make new videos about once a week. So it'd be great to have you coming back to watch all of them. So in today's video, I'm actually going to be using the story graph to go through all the stats. It would take me forever to record this video if I had to get up and grab every book off the shelf every time. And also I love the story graph app, so I want to show it off a little bit. I do have a previous video on the channel about the story graph, but I've been using this now for ages and it is my go-to app, so I want to show it off again. So in here basically we can see this is the home page. You can search books up the top here, and then it's got what you're currently reading and some recommendations, your to read pile, and a few different things on here, and then you can track what you're reading as you go along, same as Goodreads. Then in here, so we've got reading stats for 2021. We can see that I've read 30 books in 2020. Oh, sorry, I've read 22 books out of my goal of 30 books, and I've read 15,765 pages out of my goal for the year of 24,000. And then you get some breakdowns of those stats here in various charts and graphs. And you can see over time how your reading has gone up and down, and some rating information. If we come over into the profile page, we can come down here to the read recently section, and in there we can go in and filter through all the books that you've read. There's different ways of filtering. If you want to give someone a recommendation or something, you can do that basically by going through here, like choosing the various different moods, pace, fiction, non-fiction, all of that stuff. So that is really powerful. So what I will do first, actually, because this is a really cool feature of the story graph, is that you can DNF books, so did not finish, but it still counts towards your page goal. So if you read half of a book and then got bored with it or something, you can just DNF it, and those pages that you read still count, but it's not going to clog up like the list of books that you've read, basically. So just up here we can see all the books that I've DNF'd this year. So we'll start with these, and I DNF'd these for various reasons, and we'll go through. The first one was Rising Star, The Making of Barack Obama by David J. Garrow. I was actually really enjoying this book. And I got about halfway through. You can see that it's a 1,472 page book. I think that includes some notes and stuff, so it's a little bit over 1,000 pages in reality. And I went through a bit of a reading slump. It was staring me in the face. It was taking me forever. I just needed to move on and read something else. So that's what I did. I picked up something else and started reading that. And I'm actually planning to come back to this book very, very soon. The Evening and the Morning by Ken Follett. This is the prequel to the Kingsbridge series. Again, I was really enjoying it, just wasn't really in the mood to finish it. I got about halfway through, so I DNF'd that. I'll come back to it. Post-War, A History of Europe Since 1945. This was something I used for my degree, and I just picked at it, various chapters, didn't read it cover to cover. D-Day, The Battle for Normandy. It was actually really recent. I DNF'd that. It just wasn't what I was looking for in a book about D-Day. It was very much on-the-ground battlefield stuff. I was wanting a little bit more high level of the political and strategy stuff, and that's just not what this book was doing. So I read the first 200 pages or so and then moved on to other stuff. The War Beneath the Sea, Submarine Conflict During World War II. I actually got this on audiobook, read or listened to about 25% of it, and then I DNF'd it because I want to get the physical copy and read I'd read it that way, just because it was very technical. It was very, very good, but just a bit too technical for audiobook format. The Power Broker, Robert Moses and the Fall of New York. Again, this I was actually reading at the same time as the Barack Obama book. Got bogged down, stopped reading it, but I'm coming back to this very soon. How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. This one, basically, I got 75% of the way through. He was repeating himself a bunch of times. So I felt like I'd got the gist of it, so I just moved on. Life and Fate by Vasily Grossman. Don't know why I stopped reading this one. It's a fiction book. I find fiction to be quite challenging. So yeah, I stopped reading it. I do want to come back to it one day, but maybe not super soon. And then To the Edges of the Earth, 1909, and The Race for the Three Poles and the Climax of the Age of Exploration by Edward J. Larson. This one, I didn't love it. I read, again, about half of this book. It's very short. I just wasn't loving it. It just wasn't a super exciting book. So we're going to go back to the actual books I've read, and I'm just going to sort this by earliest read, so we can go from the beginning of the year. So the first three books I read were the Richard Evans Third Reich trilogy. I've got books on these. I've got videos on these books. Basically, it's a very thorough history of the Third Reich. The first one is the coming of the Third Reich. The second one is the Third Reich in power, and the final one is the Third Reich at war. The second book, or the next book I read, was Lenin, the Man, the Dictator, and the Master of Terror by Victor Sebastian. This is quite a new biography of Lenin. It takes some interesting approaches to Lenin. I thought it was a little bit brief. I felt like it could have been fleshed out a little bit more, but it was really easy reading. As like Soviet history can be quite challenging to read, this was very easy reading. So in terms of the prose, it's obviously quite dark stuff, but yeah, that one was what I quite enjoyed. The Five Giants biography of the welfare state by Nicholas Timmins. This is a history of the British welfare state, taking you from basically the Second World War all the way up to the present, how things evolved, how education policy, healthcare policy, social policy, housing policy, all those things evolved. Quite dry stuff. If you're not super into that sort of stuff, I wouldn't recommend picking up this book, but I quite enjoyed it. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which is by John le Carre. It says here George Smiley #5. I was under the impression that it was the first Smiley book. But anyway, I read that one. I have The Honourable Schoolboy sitting somewhere on my shelf here. I do want to read more Smiley, or more le Carre, but particularly the Smiley books. So I enjoyed that. I find fiction, again, quite challenging to read. But yeah, it was good. Caesar, Life of a Colossus. That is a biography of Caesar. I've got a video on my channel about it. It's actually one of my more popular videos, so you can go there if you want to hear my thoughts. To Hell and Back, 1914, Europe 1914 to 1949. This by Ian Kershaw. This is the entry for Penguin History of Europe, covering those dates. I used it again for grad school, but I actually read this one cover to cover. It's really good, really fascinating. I've actually read it previously a couple of years ago. I really enjoyed it. Inspired by Marty Kagan. This is a book about product management, so I read it just for work. Castles of Steel by Robert K. Massey. This is probably the favorite book that I read so far this year. It's about the naval battles in the First World War, naval policy. It's an incredible book. all about. I've actually got a video, or I mentioned it in a video, but it's very, very interesting, and I want to pick up his other book called Dreadnought. Then I read The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. This is, again, a book about product management. I read it for work. Dark Continent, Europe's 20th Century was about, again, for grad school, about Europe's 20th century. It's just another perspective on it. I read The Chariot Makers, Assembling the Perfect Formula One Car by Steve Matchett. This actually was my dad's book. He had it lying around at home. I picked it up. It's very short and quite an interesting way of looking at engineering, and particularly engineering Formula One cars. I read Into Thin Air, a personal account of the Mount Everest disaster by John Krakauer. There's obviously a movie that was made about this. So yeah, very, very interesting. Empowered by Marty Kagan. This is his new product management book, so I'll move on from that. Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. I quite enjoyed Normal People, and I've been trying to read more fiction, so I read this one, and I did quite enjoy it. Again, fiction doesn't do a ton for me, but it was a fun read. The Anatomy of Fascism by Robert O. Paxton. This is a fascinating book about how we can think about fascism, how fascism works, how we can include and exclude various regimes as fascist or not. I thought it was really, really interesting, and I plan to get a physical copy of this so that I can use it for reference. All Hell Let Loose by Max Hastings. This is a single volume history of the Second World War. It takes a more top-down approach to the war, looking at various aspects of it, including the strategy, the politics, etc. Kind of different to Anthony Beevor's approach, which is bottom-up, looking at the battlefield. So very, very interesting. JFK Volume 1 by Frederick Loggeval. This was probably my second favorite book that I read so far. It was a fascinating look at JFK, very, very well written, very, very enjoyable. The Premonition, a Pandemic Story by Michael Lewis. This is his newest book about COVID-19 and the way the US public health system dealt with it. So I saw it came out, I had to read it. I love Michael Lewis. Empire of Pain by Patrick Radden Keefe, which is about the Sackler dynasty and their role in the opioid crisis by producing and selling OxyContin. So very, very, very interesting. I quite enjoy those journalistic books from time to time, just getting my teeth stuck into those. So that was one of those. And then Stalin Volume 1, Paradoxes of Power by Stephen Kotkin. I've got a whole video on this, one of my most popular videos, so you can go watch that. I really, really enjoyed that book, but it's very, very complex. Again, go and watch that video if you're interested. And then Ian Kershaw's Hitler, which again, I have a video on. Very, very much enjoyed this book. So that's all the books that I've read so far. So it was 23 books that I finished and 9 books that I DNF'd at various stages of completion. And just to give you the number, basically 15,765 pages total read, and you can see that I went through peaks and troughs. So that was the video. I'd love to know if any of these books pique your interest. If you have thoughts on any of them, please leave them in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel. I make book videos all the time, non-fiction mostly, but I'm branching a little bit into fiction, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks. Bye.